What's up everybody, Auden has uploaded some impressive new training footage ahead of his match with Artem Taranenko. Engenturzi recently uploaded a video where he told us that Denis has requested a main event match in the near future, and we've got tons of new match announcements for the upcoming card East vs West 17 in Arlington, Texas. This card is going to be pretty sick. Let's get into it. Alright, let's talk about Auden's recent training footage that he's uploaded to YouTube. In this video, Auden hits a 107.5 pound pronation lift after he was done training, so this was not a fresh lift. This is a pretty impressive lift, especially considering Auden's height. He's 6'3", he's got pretty long levers. That obviously makes the lift more difficult. And doing 107 pounds when you've only got maybe 70-80% of your peak strength in the gas tank is quite good. I imagine if he was fresh going for singles, he could probably hit 115, heck, maybe even 120. It did look pretty easy, and if you look at the angle he takes when he does this lift, he's got a pretty good angle. His forearm is dang near parallel to the ground. And let me tell you guys, if you've never tried this lift, just switching the angle of your arm very slightly to be at an incline angle instead of parallel to the ground, it drastically reduces the amount of strength needed to lift the weight. I've tried this lift a few times, and when I do it, if I have my elbow below my hand, I can do 100 pounds pretty easily. But as soon as I take it to a parallel angle, it becomes much more difficult. So really good lift by Auden, and I have to say, this propaganda that he's been coming out with lately, it's starting to shift my idea of what the match is going to look like. I've been Team Artem this whole time, and don't get me wrong, this channel is a pro Artem channel, but I feel like Auden is starting to influence me in a way that is skewing my idea of how this match is going to turn out. With every passing day, I'm starting to feel like Auden is the favorite and Artem is the underdog coming into this match. But you know what, I do have to keep one thing in mind, and that is that both of these guys are young. The Artem that pulled with Auden however long ago it was is not going to be the same Artem that pulls Auden at Mach 3. So I'm going to maintain my trust and faith in Artem. I believe he can get the job done. I think he's just going to have superior top end strength. If he can keep his pronation, maybe even if he loses his cupping, it's not the end of the world. As long as he keeps his pronation, he's got great side pressure, I think he can get it done. Auden is not very good at holding in a very extended position, and like Auden said, the Mac tables actually make the King's move slightly more difficult to do because you're not on this elevated pad. The table is actually just flat, so you can't really dip down because your arm ends up getting in the way. So that's really good news for Artem, but man, Auden is much stronger than I thought, and I know for a while I've kind of seen him as the Jake Paul of arm wrestling, which by the way is a good thing. It's good to have a Jake Paul in the sport, but I didn't really view him as a legitimate threat to like real arm wrestlers. You know what? My mind's been changed though. Auden is definitely a legit arm wrestler, and I think we're going to see a good match at Mach 3. Alright, let's move on. So Denis has apparently asked to be the main event of an upcoming card. We don't really know what card it's going to be yet, but Engenturzi recently released a video where he was just talking about a variety of topics, and the main one that caught my interest was Denis requesting to be the main event of a card coming up in the near future. Now, Denis has been teasing his comeback for years now. He eventually did make a comeback against Devon, and he got beaten pretty convincingly, but I didn't think that match was actually that bad for him. After all, it was his comeback match, and I'd be excited to see him pull again. Recently, there has been a rumor of him possibly facing Dave Chafee, but now we obviously have Dave Chafee against Georgi in Arlington, so I'm not sure how quickly Dave is going to want to make a turnaround depending on how his match goes. He may get injured, so we'll see if any matches get announced regarding Denis. Obviously, nothing is going to be concrete until after East vs West 17 is done and over with, but I would actually really like to see Dave and Denis rematch all these years later, and I think it's a great match because Dave has kind of become this gatekeeper to the top 10 in the super heavyweight division, and I think Denis genuinely wants to make a run for the #1 spot. It seems like that is his goal, so Dave Chafee would be a great starting point for that, and I'd like to know what you guys think. Do you think we're ever going to see Denis back on the table? Honestly, sometimes it feels like all we get from Denis are training videos and comeback teasers and possible matches, but we never actually get to see him compete in an actual super match. The only one one that we got was him versus Devon, which, to be fair, was a good match. It was an entertaining match, but I would much prefer to see him be active. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about that. Now, let's move on to some of the matches that have been announced for the card in Arlington, Texas. This card is going to be awesome, and honestly, I might be more excited for this card than I was for East versus West 16. This card has basically all of my favorite arm wrestlers on it, and we're going to go through a few of the matches. I'm going to give a bit of a breakdown and my prediction. So let's get started with the first one. Matt Mask versus Kydyrgali Angerbayev at 105 kg. This is a right arm super match, and guys, I'm super excited for this one. Matt Mask, one of my favorite arm wrestlers to watch, and he's been really active lately. He's had a decent amount of success lately as well. He's coming off of a very dominant win over Marcio Barboza. He also had a dominant win over Lars Robakin, and he even had a very close match with Sergey Kalinchenko, which I gotta say, right now, that match is aging quite well for Matt Mask. And although Matt Mask did lose to Brad Grundy, and that loss is now aging pretty badly, in retrospect, it does sound like Matt was not 100% on that day. So for my own personal biases, I'm not going to put too much stock into that loss. And I'm going to say that I feel pretty good about this one for Matt Mask. I don't know if I would consider him the favorite. Kydyrgali Angerbayev is coming off of a surgery, so this is his comeback match. He's probably not going to be at his peak, obviously. So this might be the perfect recipe for Matt Mask to start his title run. The title run starts now, guys. I'm going to predict Matt Mask to win this one. I know this might be a little bit of a heart pick over a head pick. Kydyrgali Angerbayev is incredible, one of the highest table IQs I've ever seen. Just go back and watch his match with Irakli Zerkashvili. His technique in that match is absolutely flawless. At one point, he lost his hand, dove in for a press, and then pulled back out, regained his hand, and took Irakli's hand. It was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. So Kydyrgali, no joke, but I'm going to give this one to Matt Mask, and I think if he could win this one, it would be huge for his motivation moving forward. Let's see a title run out of Matt. All right, let's move on. Once again, I'm super excited for this match. Dave Chafee versus Georgi Svetkov. Now, we all know Dave Chafee has not had the best of luck in these past few years because he's lost to a lot of the guys in the top 10. He's kind of become a gatekeeper to the top 10. He does not want to be a gatekeeper, though. He wants to get into the top 10 and prove that he's still got what it takes. And in a recent interview with Evgeny, Dave talks about his current condition. Obviously, we know in the past he's dealt with neck issues, nerve issues, atrophy in his arm. And although all of that is not necessarily gone, he made it sound like the pain for the most part is gone, and he's gotten back to training with really heavy weights, training the way that he wants to, training the way that he needs to be able to get into the top 10. So he's feeling good, and he's going to need to be on the top of his game because Georgi Svetkov is legit. Not even Devon Larratt could take the hand of Georgi. Georgi's got incredible endurance. You wouldn't think it by looking at him, no offense, but he does have really good endurance. He's got one of the best hands in the world. He's an elite top roller, and he has proven himself to be a very tough test for anyone in the top 10. As far as predicting this match goes, I hate to say this because Dave Chafee is probably my favorite arm wrestler of all time. I'm gonna say Georgi wins this one. I want Dave to win so bad. I want him back in the top 10. I want him to be a legit threat to the top guys, but I have to give this one to Georgi. If I'm going with my head, I think Georgi wins this one. Maybe Dave gets one pin, maybe two if we're lucky. If he wins, I will be ecstatic. I will be so hyped, but I have to give this one to Georgi. Although Georgi has had some trouble with presses in the past, so that does give me hope for Dave Chafee. But then again, Georgi, you may not really think about this when you think about Georgi, but Georgi actually has quite a good King's move. If you watch his match against Sergey, he hovers above the pad for quite some time. in a very open position. I would call it a king's move. So then again, that could be a pretty big issue for Dave. We'll see. I have to say, Georgi probably takes this one, but man, I'm rooting for Dave the whole way, and I really hope he gets the win. All right, let's move on. Devon Larratt versus Corey West. So I believe this is a match for the #1 spot at super heavyweight on the left arm in North America. So pretty big match here, and I think I just have to give this one to Devon Larratt. I think maybe Corey West gets one pin, possibly. Devon Larratt has been training his left arm ever since his loss to Levon, and we saw what Devon Larratt did to Artem Morozov on the left hand. Yes, it was kind of a dramatized pull just for the fun of it, but I think that was maybe a little bit more legit than it was meant to be. We saw Devon take the hand of Artem Morozov in that open top roll position, and if you remember, Corey West has faced Artem Morozov, and Artem absolutely destroyed him. It wasn't even close. And recently, we saw Corey West versus Tobias Sporong, and once again, Tobias just absolutely destroyed him. He was way too fast, way too technical. Corey is very strong. He's probably as strong, if not stronger, than a lot of the guys in the super heavyweight left hand category, but he's just not very technically good, and he's certainly not fast. I think pretty much every round of the Tobias match he missed the go, or he just failed to engage soon enough after the go to actually stop the match. We saw when he stopped the match he had some success, and he was quite strong, but he is just so slow, and it doesn't seem like he's very technically proficient, which when you're going up against Devon Larratt is going to be a nightmare. So I think this is going to be a pretty clear victory for Devon Larratt. Let's move on. John Brzenk versus Yoshinobu Kanai. Now, these guys have faced in the past, and I believe they've both beaten each other. I think I'm going to have to go with Yoshinobu Kanai. No disrespect to John. He is the GOAT. He will always be the GOAT. And I think at this point he's pulling just more for the fun of it than anything, and that is totally fine. But in the past couple of years, and possibly even longer, John has had issues with his shoulder, so he can't engage much side pressure anymore. His press isn't as good as it used to be. His hand is still very good, but I think with Yoshi coming back and clearly having some motivation, especially after having a really good match with Todd Hutchings, I think he's going to have a really energized and motivated mindset going into this match, whereas John is probably just pulling for the fun of it at this point. He's not really trying to get to a title shot or anything, so I think I'm going to have to go with Yoshinobu. I don't think he's going to crush John. It'll probably be a good match, but I do see him as the favorite. Let's move on. Mindaugas Terasaitis versus Janis Amelins. Now, a lot of casual fans are not going to care about this match. This is probably one of the best matches on the card. Both of these guys are known for their technical proficiency, but there is one major difference between the two of them. Mindaugas Terasaitis has been very active in the past few years. Janis Amelins has not been active in the super match scene. I know he's gone to tournaments, he's pulled, but there's something different about super matches. There's something different about competing on the large stage. He did recently have a match with Justin Bishop, and he won that match 3-2, I believe. And once he got warmed up in that match, he looked very dominant. And I think a lot of that had to do with his superior endurance, because Justin Bishop looked way more powerful in the first 2 rounds, but Janis made some adjustments and was able to get that win. But I think I have to go with Mindaugas on this one. He is, after all, the GOAT. I know John is the GOAT, but Mindy, he's the real GOAT. He has mastered arm wrestling, as we all know. So I'm going with Mindy. Let's move on. Last one that I'd like to talk about today, Evgeny Prudnik versus Kody Merritt. We haven't seen Kody Merritt on the East versus West stage in a while now. We have seen Evgeny Prudnik, and recently he has not had a whole lot of success. It's been speculated that he's gone off the juice, and that is why his performance has dropped dramatically. And I actually think this is probably true. He went from crushing Artem Morozov, crushing Todd Hutchings, to then losing to Todd Hutchings, and his performances have just recently taken this downward spiral. So I'm going to go with Kody Merritt on this one. Kody's got a phenomenal top roll. I don't think Evgeny Prudnik is going to be able to turn him into a hook. So I'm going to go with Kody Merritt. I hope he gets the job done. And that is all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one. Bye.